Naruto exclusive videos Lemon come out on my Boosty. You can watch and subscribe. Link in the description, like the video and write a comment, enjoy watching. Description: Naruto dies in battle with Kaguya and Rikudo sends him to another world. Prologue: I'm dead, that was the first thought that came to mind when I saw the gray bone rushing towards me. And everything was going well. We teamed up with Sasuke again, defeated Obito, successfully contained Madara, and almost sealed Kaguya, when suddenly everything went wrong. Sasuke and I were separated, and I decided to distract her while Sakura and Obito were looking for him. Having created several hundred clones, I transferred the Gudadama to one of them so that Kaguya would think that it was the original. However, the plan failed. She changed the dimension again, and this time there was several times higher gravity. All the clones were destroyed by the impact with the ground, and the Gudadama ended up far away from me. It was hard for her to be here too, but she adapted much faster. And now I'm watching as the gray bone flies towards me, killing anyone it pierces. People say that before death, your whole life flashes before your eyes. Well, what can I say? That's true. I remembered my horrible childhood in the orphanage, the looks full of hatred and malice from the villagers, my studies at the academy, and the traitor Mizuki. I was an idiot then, trying to gain the respect of the herd called the people of Konoha. I protected them from the Jinchuriki who lost control. One-tailed killed Pain who attacked the village, reviving everyone in the process, never released the Kyuubi, never touched the villagers, and all I got from them was a complete lack of any changes. You could say that everything only got worse. During the war, I was finally able to make friends with Kurama, and he said that there were a huge number of bookmarks in my mind for loyalty to Konoha and a decrease in intelligence. After removing them, I seemed to wake up. I realized that everything that Grandpa Third did for my safety was a huge nothing. Yes, he gave me money so that I could buy food with it, but firstly, it was not enough for normal nutrition, and secondly, they often significantly inflated the prices for everything, so that I could only afford instant ramen. Every time I was beaten and ended up in the hospital, he said that this would not happen again, and even allocated a NBU for some time so that he would look after me. However, he didn't care about me and nothing changed. Another disappointment was Jiraiya, the godfather who decided to appear in his godson's life 13 years later, when he was no longer needed. Now I understand that he was not only a terrible guardian, but also a terrible teacher. Yes, he taught me the Rasengan, but that's all. For all those 3 years that we traveled together, he did not give me anything new. Even Orochimaru, no matter how terrible he was, taught Sasuke conscientiously, and all that Orochimaru did was go to brothels and spy on girls and nonsense. All that was good in my life is connected with Team 7. Sasuke became a true friend to me, for whom I was ready to kill anyone, and I'm sure he thought exactly the same. That's why I wanted to bring him back to Konoha so much after he left for the Snake's Sannin. Kakashi-sensei and I had also developed a friendly relationship, so much so that I had adopted his habit of being late, as well as his excuses. It got to the point that when the fifth called us, we both arrived 2 hours after the appointed time without saying a word, simultaneously saying that a black cat had crossed our path. Interrupting my memories, a bone was thrust into my stomach, and I began to crumble into dust. It did not hurt, I did not feel anything at all. I did not think that I was dying too early, since I had long been prepared for my death. Closing my eyes, I simply relaxed. However, after a few minutes, I realized that nothing had changed and that my death had somehow been delayed. I opened my eyes and saw that I was again in the dimension where I met Rikudo. Looking around, I noticed the old man himself. Turning to face him, I looked straight into his Rinnegan and asked the question that interested me. "Hello, Hagoromo-sama, what am I doing here? Shouldn't I die from Kaguya's bone?" "You died from it. I transferred your soul here because I have a proposition for you." "And what do you want to offer me?" I asked, smirking. "I can give you a second chance to live your life. You see, there are a great many worlds similar to yours, and I can transfer your consciousness into your own body, but in another world. Of course, along with the friend who is sealed within you, if you both want. And will my memories and abilities remain with me? The memories will remain, but you will have to return the abilities yourself. The only thing you will have left is the ability to enter the Sage of the Six Paths mode without my help in that world. This is an interesting proposal, and I think I will agree. What do you think, Kurama? If you agree, then I am also ready to go with you. Someone needs to control you so that nothing happens. As if you were bothered with that much before. I muttered back to him. So, what will be your answer? Rikudo asked. We agree. I answered him. Well, fine, but I must warn you that that world may differ from yours, and sometimes significantly. Okay, that's even more interesting. What if Akatsuki isn't there? I exclaimed. Ready? He asked with a smile. Ready. Kurama and I answered in unison. Then I'm starting the transfer. Good luck to Naruto. The world around us began to glow brightly. I closed my eyes and covered them with my hand, but it didn't help much. Suddenly I felt myself being quickly pulled somewhere. At that moment, my consciousness turned off. Chapter 1. I woke up lying on a comfortable bed. Opening my eyes and looking around, I saw a nice room, not very richly furnished, but decently. It was small, with light wallpaper and ceiling, a bed in the corner, a wardrobe, a nightstand and a desk in front of the window. I stood up and tried to do my usual exercises to tone my muscles, but my body didn't feel as good as before. Some exercises I couldn't do at all. Walking up to the wardrobe and opening the door, I looked in the mirror and groaned. A scarlet-haired boy of about 7 years old, with bright blue eyes and a mustache on his cheeks, similar to a fox's, was looking at me from there. Everything seemed fine, and I looked good, but my moaning was caused by my age. 7 years. When I imagine how much work I have to do to get back to my previous level, I immediately want to go back to bed, fall asleep and never wake up again. Okay, now is not the time to feel sorry for myself. I need to understand my current level of strength, and understand how this world is different from mine. Judging by the room, I am not in the apartment that the third gave me in that world, and this means two things. Either Hiruzen is adequate here and gave me normal housing, and not that wreck, or my parents are alive. I think there is no need to say which option is preferable for me. Looking out the window, I saw Konoha in the morning and the Hokage monument a little further. For familiar stone faces were looking at me. Obviously the Hokage here are the same as mine. Looking at the face of my father, I began to pray that my hopes would come true and my parents were alive here. Then suddenly the memories of the previous owner of this body fell upon me. I lay down on the bed so as not to fall while I absorbed them. Looking at the life of my predecessor, I realized that my prayers, unfortunately, were heard. Yes, my parents are alive here, and I even have an older brother and a twin sister, but despite this, I can't say whose life was easier, Naruto's or mine. My parents pretend that I don't exist, they don't even cook food for me. And my brother hates me with all his heart, and is often the ringleader in my beatings. The village still hates me and calls me a demon. And all because the local Minato did not expect that there would be twins and relaxed after the birth of his sister, and immediately after my birth, the fox broke the seal and broke free, and he was also subdued by an unknown person in a mask, and set on the village. The masked man was defeated by Minato, and the fox was driven out of the village. Instead of my father, the third sacrificed himself, sealing Kurama in me. And now everyone hates me because of the fox and the fact that Hiruzen died through my alleged fault. The only ray of light in the life of my predecessor was my sister, Kiyomi. Namikaze. She couldn't influence the family in any way, but at the same time she sincerely loved the local Naruto, often covered for him in front of the residence, and shared her portions until he learned to cook. In general, summing up, I can say that the situation, although it has changed, is not much. They still hate me and I will also have to create a reputation for myself. I hope that at least here I will find normal friends, and not those hypocrites from the past world, whom the third set up for me. Having mastered the memories, I went down to my subconscious to talk to Kurama. As always, he was lying in the clearing, putting his paws under his muzzle and looking at me. And what do you think about the current situation? His voice thundered. The situation is not the best. I answered I do not see any special changes and they still hate me, only this time with living parents. I just want to meet my sister, she seems adequate here. What can you say about the state of my carcass? It leaves much to be desired. In your world, of course, it was even worse. Here you at least trained a little before, but it's still weak, you'll have to catch up. The only plus is that your possession destroyed the seal, so you don't have to look for the key, and I can immediately give you all the power. The only problem is that your body is not ready for it yet, and you'll have to train a lot. I'll start working on your hearth and chakra channels. In a couple of years you'll be able to calmly use my power. Of course, not at the peak level, you still have a lot of growing to do, but this is not bad. Well, the lack of a seal is really good news, less hassle, plus you'll be able to treat me more effectively if anything happens. Okay, time to get to work, we have a lot to do. Yeah, I'm going to bed, if anything you wake me up, said the fox and fell asleep. I was always amazed at how he could fall asleep like that, in an instant. Sometimes I can't sleep for hours, and I wake up quite often because of nightmares. Getting out of bed, I put on a white t-shirt and black pants with red lines and left the room and went to the shower. After leaving there, I went down to the kitchen and started making breakfast for two. Putting 2 plates of scrambled eggs with tomatoes and 2 cups of coffee on a tray, I went upstairs and went into my sister's room, deciding to get to know her first. I saw a room very similar to mine, the same light wallpaper, the same view from the window, except that the closet looked much fuller, which did not surprise me at all. After all, it was a girl's room. On the bed lay a girl who was almost a complete copy of me except for her light hair and the lack of fox whiskers. She was sleeping, hugging a pillow, which looked very cute. However, when I sat down on a chair, the girl opened her blue eyes and looked at me in surprise. Naruto? What are you doing here? She asked in a sleepy voice. Good morning, Kiyomi. I decided to spoil you and brought you breakfast, I answered with a smile. Really? She exclaimed. Thank you. She jumped out of bed and hugged me. I reflexively hugged her back. In general, I am not used to hugs and usually avoid them, but with her this feeling went away. It was strange, but pleasant. She broke away from me and said with a smile, Now I will wash up and come. I nodded and watched as she left the room. My first impression of her was entirely positive. We will definitely get along with her, which I cannot say about the rest of the family. If they hate me, then I see no point in establishing contact with them. Yes, I have always wanted to have a family, but it seems to me that it is better not to have one at all than to receive only hatred and contempt from them. A loving sister is quite enough for me. Soon she returned, and we sat down to eat. After eating a few pieces, she asked, Why did you suddenly bring me breakfast in bed? Should there be some reason? Maybe I just decided to please my sister? In that case, you did it, thank you. By the way, it turned out very tasty, it was worse before. So you didn't like my cooking before? I asked, making an offended face. No, of course I liked it, it's just better now. She began to justify herself. Okay, I'll believe you this time, I answered smiling. What are your plans for today? Mom was going to start fueling training. I think it will take all day. Will you join us? No, I don't think that would be a good idea, I said, frowning. Right, I'm sorry, I said it without thinking. She was upset. Nothing happens. And what are you going to do then? I was thinking of taking a walk around the village and finding some abandoned training ground. It's worth starting training. After all, we have to enter the academy in a week. Then will you show me your training ground? We'll train together, Kiyomi asked. Sure, if I find it I'll show you. Okay, I'll go. My parents will wake up soon. I don't want to see them. Okay, good luck and Ai-san. Taking the dishes, I left my sister's room and went down to the kitchen. Having quickly washed the dishes, I was about to leave when I met someone I would prefer never to see. My older brother Namike Seiji. The same age as Itachi but much less talented, he is a genin at the age of 12. His team's mentor was Kakashi Hatake. An extremely unpleasant person with an inflated sense of self-importance. He believes that everyone around him owes him, and at any convenient opportunity mentions that his father is Hokage. Looking at me with disdain, he began to speak. And where did you go? What business is it of yours? I answered coldly. Oh, have you really started teething? Don't you know that you should be polite to your elders? I will respect those who deserve it, and believe me, you are not one of them, I said even colder, and while he was surprised by the behavior of his usually quiet and frightened brother, I left the house. Finding myself on the street, I went to an abandoned training ground familiar to me from my past life. I didn't want to see the looks of hatred and contempt directed at me again, so I walked under the henge. Fortunately, Kurama's presence awakened my hearth, and I can use chakra, but not wanting to take risks, I walked along the deserted streets. After 20 minutes without incident, I reached the training grounds and began doing physical exercises. I need to quickly regain my form. I'm no longer used to feeling so weak. Besides, this world is different, and you never know what can happen the next day. Of course, I know how things can develop, but here everything can go differently. Maybe Pain will decide to attack Konoha in 20 years, maybe tomorrow, or maybe Pain is not here at all. Therefore, I need to become strong as soon as possible. And that means it's time for training in the power of youth style. I swear, if after these words you put on green tights and make a bull haircut, then no Rikudo will help you to escape. Having heard my thoughts, Kurama said threateningly. I agree, nothing will fix these two, even Kaguya is powerless here. I chuckled in response. After 3 hours of physical exercise, I sat under a tree and began to meditate. In my past life, I neglected meditation for a long time. Because of this, I had simply disgusting chakra control. Already at the end of my life, I began to correct this mistake, which also helped in studying the Sannin mode. I wonder who I will make a summoning contract with in this world? Definitely not with the Toads, their Sannin mode is certainly powerful. But in that world they tried to control me through summoning. Here of course everything may be different, but I have a bad feeling and I do not trust the Toads. I'll probably join the free conscription after the Chunin exam, no matter how risky it is. After sitting for a few hours meditating, I realized that I was very hungry, so I went to the only place that always accepted me, and where they serve the most delicious ramen in the world, Ichiraku Ramen. Still wearing my henge, I walked along the streets of Konoha and enjoyed the peace. After all, my entire adult life I was tense, with only a few periods of relaxation. First the orphanage, where everyone hated me, then the academy, where the situation was no better. All this time walking along the streets, I saw only disdainful looks and heard whispers behind my back. Then there was a calm period of D-rank missions. Probably, this was the happiest period of my life. Here my friendship with Sasuke and Kakashi-sensei was born. Here I finally learned henge and could normally walk around the village. Unfortunately, all good things come to an end, and after that, one event followed another, the Chunin exam, the quest for Granny Tsunade, the journey with Hirozunin, Akatsuki, and the Fourth Shinobi World War. Now I have learned to appreciate all these quiet moments in life when you can just relax. It's just a pity that I have to use henge for this. That's how, reflecting on my life, I reached the ramen shop. Taking off my henge and sitting down at the table, I looked at such a dear old man Tucci, a man without whom I most likely would not have survived. However, he does not know me here. Good afternoon, my name is Tucci, what do you wish for? Good afternoon, I am Naruto Uzumaki, can I have 2 large pork ramen please? I'll do it now. While I was waiting for my order, an unknown Chunin came into the ramen shop, looked at me, grimaced and said to the owner, Tucci-san, it seems you have a demon here, let me throw it out. He said, holding out his hand to me. Just as I was about to answer him, a ladle hit my outstretched hand. The Chunin looked at the gloomy cook in surprise. You are the only demon here. If you are going to hit an innocent child, get out of here, Tucci said angrily. The Chunin, not expecting this, recoiled from me and walked out of the ramen shop with a gloomy look. Thank you, Tucci-san, but you shouldn't have. I'd better go so as not to scare away your customers, I said sadly, starting to get up. Sit down, said the old man. I am not going to tolerate bullying of children in my establishment, and if they think you are a demon and are ready to beat you because of this, then they are no better than real demons. And I will not feed such people. You are one of the first who think so, thank you for that, I answered with a smile. No need, any decent person would have done the same. By the way, your ramen is ready. This is the first time you have been here, so that it is on the house. Thank you, Tuchi-san. After eating and once again thanking the old man, I returned to the training ground and continued physical training, sometimes taking breaks for meditation. Towards the end of the day, I decided to test my control and try to walk on trees and water. I succeeded on the tree, but I still lacked control on the water. Evening came and I, tired after training, used my last strength to use henge to get home. Having arrived without incident, I took off my shoes in the hallway and was about to go to the bathroom when I was called from the kitchen. Naruto! It was Kushina. Thinking about why she suddenly called me, I went into the kitchen. Where have you been? She asked angrily. And what business is it of yours? I said coldly. She was a little taken aback by such a tone, but still answered. Really? It doesn't seem very noticeable, I said and went to the bathroom, leaving the shocked Kushina in the kitchen. After taking a shower, I somehow made it to my bed and collapsed on it, instantly falling asleep. Chapter 2. The next morning I woke up later than usual. Apparently this body was not yet ready for yesterday's loads. After quickly washing up, I went downstairs and saw Kiyomi and Kushina there. After greeting my sister and ignoring my mother, I quickly made myself ramen, ate, and went outside. I had not managed to go far when someone called out to me. Anai-san, did you find the training ground yesterday? Kiyomi asked, running up to me. Yes, I'm just heading there. Are you with me? Of course, you promised to show it to me, she answered happily. Okay, but don't tell anyone that I'm going to show you now, I asked, grinning conspiratorially. Okay, what will you do? In response to this, I used the henge of my previous appearance, but without a mustache. She stared at me in surprise and just stood there with her mouth open for a few seconds. You know how to use techniques? When did you learn how to do that? She asked, still not fully recovered from the shock. So far, only this and walking on trees. And I've been learning it for the last few days, I lied a little. And he didn't tell me anything, she was offended. I wanted to arrange a surprise. If you want, I can teach you too, I smiled. Of course I want to, you still ask. Seiji was able to awaken the hearth only at 9, so we will be cooler than him. We will, you can be sure of that. All he can do is brag about his father. Before you know it, we will be stronger than him. Kiyomi also didn't like Seiji, believing that he was worthless. She is generally quite smart for her age, but at the same time she is still a child, capable of enjoying all sorts of little things. I can't do that anymore. I've been through too much. By the way, how are your few in training? Not bad, although boring. Yesterday I practiced calligraphy. And will you teach me? I smiled. Of course. She smiled back. And so, chatting about nothing, we reached the training ground. Having quickly done a warm-up and shown it to my sister, we began physical exercises. Kiyomi also did it, although it was not so difficult. After all, to awaken the hearth you need a strong body. After practicing for 3 hours, we sat down to meditate. I showed her how to sit correctly, and what to do to feel the chakra. Although I did not need this because of the fox and my hearth was initially awakened, I still listened to the theory related to chakra at the academy, no matter how boring it was. Meditation was difficult for Kiyomi. After all, she had an energetic Uzumaki character, and it was difficult for her to sit in one place for a long time. I also encountered this problem during training in the Sennin regime. But unfortunately, here I could not help her in any way, and she will have to learn it on her own. A few hours later, we finished training, since we both wanted to eat. Kiyomi never awakened the hearth, but it was only a matter of time. After getting ready, we headed towards Ichiraku. After eating without any incidents, we both decided to train Fuin and headed home. Seiji was on a mission, Minato was at work, so only Kushina was home. Still ignoring her questions, we reached Kiyomi's room. There we sat down at the table, and she began to explain the basics of Fuin to me. As soon as I learned in my past life that the Uzumaki clan specialized in Fuin, I was eager to master it. But unfortunately, I did not find any scrolls on this art, and Jiraiya did not want to teach it to me, saying that I was not ready yet. Yeah, I was not ready at 16, but my sister was ready at 7. More proof of this toad's duplicity. My dream was to master my father's signature technique based on Fuin Haration. And if we had won the war then, I would have been able to learn it, since my father told me where he hid the scrolls with explanations of this technique. I hope that in this world they are in the same place, because here I will not get anything from Minato, and I want to master it. And so, while practicing calligraphy, we did not notice how evening came. We came to our senses only when Kushina called for dinner. Kiyomi immediately got up and went downstairs, and I was thinking whether I should go down or not. My stomach roared in response, demanding food. Smiling, I decided to eat anyway. Finding myself in the kitchen, I saw my entire family at the table. This was the first time I saw the Minato of this world, and outwardly he was no different from mine. The same blue eyes, the same blonde hair. He looked at me coldly and said nothing. Comparing my father and the Minato of this world, I felt only sadness. I was able to talk to my father for a while during the battle with Pain in the Fourth World War, but it was definitely not enough for an orphan. Having put my sad thoughts aside, I looked around the table and noticed some differences from the usual dinner. There was a fifth portion on the table, laid out for me. Surprised by this, I nevertheless sat down and began to eat. While Minato was asking Seiji about the past mission, Kushina was looking at me for some reason. I looked at her coldly and raised my right eyebrow, asking what she wanted from me. She sighed and turned away. Not understanding her behavior, I simply ignored it, and after finishing my meal, I quickly went up to my room. And so the week before the academy passed. Kiyomi and I trained, pulled up our physical abilities, improved our calligraphy. Kushina continues to conduct Fuin lessons for her sister, and she retells them to me. Kiyomi still hasn't awakened the hearth, but I think she will be able to sense chakra soon. I was finally able to walk on water and continue to improve my control. I think that soon I will be able to afford to create several shadow clones, one of which I will send to the academy, because I already know everything there. And here I am standing with Kiyomi and Kushina in front of the academy, and we are all waiting for the Hokage to give a speech. Looking around at the children standing here, I noticed many familiar faces. Shikamaru is lying under a tree and sleeping. He is lazy as always. Choji is sitting next to him and eating chips. There are no changes here either. Not far from me are two personalities that irritate me, Ino and Sakura. Judging by how amicably they are talking, they have not yet had time to quarrel over Sasuke. In the distance are Hinata and Niji. He is one of the few people I really felt sorry for in my past life. Interrupting my thoughts, the Hokage appears on the stage in a yellow flash, who is greeted with applause. He started his speech about the will of fire and the importance of shinobi. At least one good thing about not having the third here was that the speech would have lasted for hours instead of the 15 minutes it was now. After wishing the students good luck, he disappeared in the same flash. At that moment, we were led to the academy and assigned to classrooms. As expected, Kiyomi, I, and all the clan heirs found ourselves in Class A. The only difference from my world that I didn't like at all was the absence of Sasuke here. Also, there were more clanless people here. In my world the only one was Sakura. Irika, another asshole from my world, entered the classroom. He hated me with all his heart for the fox killing his parents, and although he tried to act friendly when communicating with me, his eyes were filled with hatred. Nevertheless, I am grateful to him for the fact that he still gave me a shinobi headband, although to do this he had to show me a B-rank technique and beat up a traitor Chunin. So kids, my name is Yumino. Irika, I will be your homeroom teacher for the next 5 years. Today's class will be an introductory lesson. I will ask everyone to come out and introduce themselves, say what you like and don't like, and also your dream. I will set an example. My name is Yumino Irika. I am a Chunin. I love dango and I don't like slackers. My goal is to make you first-class shinobi. Now a Kimichi Choji. I didn't pay attention to the introductions, just listened to the names of new people, until one name caught my attention. Uchiha Satsuki. What? Sasuke is a girl here? Indeed, a beautiful girl with dark hair down to her shoulder blades and black eyes came to the board. I'm an Uchiha. Satsuki, I love tomatoes and my brother Itachi. I don't like excessive attention and betrayal. The goal is to surpass my brother. Well, it was very unexpected. Who would have thought that Sasuke, a man who has attracted many fans all his life, would become a girl himself? Kurama, what do you think about this? I mentally addressed the fox. Now I don't know what else to expect from this world. Imagine that this Madara here is also a woman and she and Hashirama were lovers. The fox said, laughing. Heh, that would be really funny, I grinned. And I hope that I never find out about this. I don't want to meet Madara again. Yeah. Namikaze Kiyomi. Irika interrupted our mental dialogue. She stepped forward and said, My name is Namikaze. Kiyomi, I like ramen and my brother, I don't like baseless hatred. The goal is to make my brother recognized in the village. I looked at her in surprise. She smiled in response and returned to her place. Namikaze Naruto. A wave of whispers immediately went through the class as I stepped forward. My name is Uzumaki. Naruto, I love ramen and my sister, I hate hypocrisy. My goal should not concern you. I said in a cold voice and went to my seat. Someone tried to trip me, but I simply stepped on the foot of the one who tripped me and walked on. After some time, the performance ended and Irika said, It is very nice to meet you all, I hope we can all become friends. Classes begin tomorrow at 8 a.m. Please do not be late. At this point, you can all leave. Let's go to the training ground, I whispered to Kiyomi. She nodded silently, and we left the academy together. This time Kiyomi finally managed to feel her hearth, which she was very happy about, and again pounced on me with hugs. Today I decided to find out my elements. There I only had wind, but maybe this body will have other predispositions. Having bought 5 pieces of chakra-conducting paper in advance, I squeezed them between my fingers and fed chakra into them. The result pleasantly surprised me. One sheet was cut, the second one shrank, the third one burned, the fourth one got wet, and nothing happened to the fifth one. Wind, lightning, fire, water. This is very good. I will start training wind first. After all, I already mastered it before, and it will be the easiest. Then I will most likely study lightning, Sasuke's main element, and therefore I also know a lot about it. And then we will see. Kiyomi, seeing that I have 4 elements, was happy for me and hopes that she will also have many elements. Now she could not determine her predispositions, since she had just awakened the hearth. In a week we will determine her elements too. I began training in mastering wind and tried to cut a sheet, while Kiyomi tried to learn to walk on trees. In the evening, we returned home tired and quickly went to the shower. Having sat down at the table after the shower, we began to eat. Only the sound of chopsticks was heard until a cold voice sounded. Naruto. I silently looked at Minato and raised my right eyebrow. Why did you introduce yourself as Uzumaki and not Namikaze? He asked seriously. Because I do not consider myself a member of your Hokage-sama family. I am an Uzumaki and always will be. I answered, looking straight into his eyes, and taking my food, went up to my room. After some time, a sad Kiyomi came up to me. She came into my room, sat on the bed and said, I understand why you consider yourself an Uzumaki and I hope that this will not affect our relationship. I sat down next to her and, hugging her, said firmly, It will not affect. She smiled into my shoulder, pulled away and went to her room. I decided that I had enough events for today, changed my clothes and went to bed. Chapter 3. The next month nothing changed. Kiyomi and I still go to the academy. Kushina continues to look at me sadly. I haven't talked to Minato since that incident in the kitchen, and Seiji still irritates me. Kiyomi developed her hearth a little and improved her control. it turned out that she has two elements, wind and lightning. She learned to walk on surfaces, and now we train the wind element together. Unfortunately, this time Yamato is not around to make us a waterfall, so we have to make do with training with leaves. In addition, I was finally able to master two clones, and began sending one to the academy. Kiyomi was a little offended by this, and tried to understand why I was neglecting my studies so much. I had to say that I already knew the entire academy program. She decided to learn the program as quickly as possible, and would also send a clone. We both studied for top marks, but I left first place to her. I don't feel sorry, and my sister is pleased. Only Satsuki studied with us. Her character turned out to be as cold as Sasuke's. Instead of crowds of fangirls from my world, she was pursued by crowds of fans saying that they would marry her. I never understood this. We are all 7 years old, what kind of love? I also walked around different training grounds and found several kunai and shuriken, so Kiyomi and I began training in Bukujutsu. Of course, I already knew it, but the body needs to get used to it. I also gave advice to my sister. I feel like one day she will ask how I know all this, and I don't think I can lie. After all, I became very attached to her. In addition, I found out what happened to the soul of the local Naruto. It turned out that he was tired of the attitude of others and he was thinking about suicide. But at the last moment, Rikudo appeared with a similar offer, and now he is also traveling through the worlds. I hope everything turned out better for him than for me. The guy deserves a good life. By the way, I was wondering, is each world Rikudo different, or is he the same for all worlds? If I see him again, I need to remember to ask him about it. I'm currently alone at the training grounds, practicing my wind technique. Kushina decided to arrange for her sister to practice Fuin for a few days, so for the time being I'll be in proud solitude. Besides, don't forget that she still goes to the academy. Futon, great gust. I blew a powerful gust of wind towards the tree, which, although it didn't knock it over, made it tilt. It could have been better. I remember how this same technique, used by Orochimaru, scattered our team across the entire forest of death. I created a clone, and we began to perform this technique over and over again, increasing its power and decreasing the expenditure of chakra. An hour later, I ran out of it and decided to go get a bite to eat at Ichiraku. While I was thinking about my training plan, I didn't immediately notice how another person sat down next to me. Yo, Naruto-kun. Startled, I looked at the speaker and saw Kakashi. From the memories of my past body, I can understand that Kakashi saw me several times when he was with Minato, and he treats me well. So I hope that we can restore our friendly relations. We can only hope that he turns out to be the sensei of our team. Yo, Kakashi-san. I answered in the same tone. How are studies at the academy? I thought you entered recently. He asked. Boring. Heh, I understand. I was bored there myself, that's probably why I graduated early. We ate in silence for a while, and I was thinking whether to try or not. Having made up my mind, I asked, Kakashi-san, you are the best at Raiton in the village, aren't you? Yes, and why do you need it? He asked in surprise. I found out that my sister and I have a high predisposition to lightning. Could you give us a couple of training sessions to control the elements, and maybe a couple of techniques? I'm not asking for your signature ones, just some. He stared at me and was apparently thinking about the question. It was obvious that he was surprised and interested, and I understand him. After all, it's not every day that a 7-year-old boy asks you to teach him lightning. Of course I can, but are you sure you can handle it? After all, using techniques is not easy. You need to at least have a good command of hand seals. If I weren't sure, I wouldn't have asked Kakashi-san. I already have one elemental technique, so I think I can learn another one. Really? And what technique do you have? Kakashi continued to be surprised. Futon, great impulse. I simply answered. Wow, and even another element. And what elements do you have? He asked. All but the ground. I decided to finish him off with a grin. At this point, Kakashi finally couldn't take it anymore and dropped his chopsticks. I just laughed, imagining the expression on his face under the mask. Congratulations, you broke it. Kurama laughed in my subconscious. I clicked in front of his face. He came to his senses, perked up, and looked at me. You know, I'm interested in you. I think I can train you. I myself became curious about how far you can go. As you probably know, I have a team under my care, and I often organize training for them. Come tomorrow at about 3 p.m. to the 7th training ground. Thank you, Kakashi-san. Then see you tomorrow. Bye, Naruto-kun. Thanks for the ramen, Tuchi-san. He was as delightful as always. He got up from the counter, paid for both of us, and left the establishment. Happy about such a successful meeting, I wanted to return to the training ground, when the memories of the scattered clone came to me. It turned out that today was the first day of sparring, and I still needed to be there in person. Luckily, the distance from Ichiraku to the academy was small, so in a few minutes I was there. My sister immediately met me. Hello, Anai-san, glad to see you. How was your day? Have you learned anything new? She rattled off, apparently nervous about the upcoming fight. Hello, Amuto. Yes, I got used to calling her my younger sister. Of course, she was indignant at first, but then she stopped. Either she resigned herself and got used to it, or she recognized my seniority. Yes, there is something new, maybe I'll even show you today. I understand you won't tell now, she frowned. No, how could it be a surprise then? I have to surprise you sometimes, otherwise life will seem boring. I sometimes get the feeling that you know more about me than I do. So, talking and joking with each other, we entered the courtyard of the academy, where our class had already begun to gather. I sat under a tree a little to the side from everyone. Kiyomi decided to stay with everyone and listen to Irika's explanations. The main rule of sparring is the ban on using cold weapons. In general, I was not against it. My Tai is well trained. Besides, no one forbade me to use techniques. I chuckled to myself. The first sparring was between clanless and turned out to be boring, except that I don't understand why they put a clanless girl against Kiba, the heir to a clan of fighters. The winner here was obvious. And now it was my turn. Although this is a different world, for some reason I was sure that my opponent would be the same. Only with minor changes. Namikaze Naruto and Uchiha Satsuki. Wincing at the name, I stood up and entered the circle. As I thought, it would be a fight against Satsuki. Disdainful laughter immediately rushed my way. Everyone wished her to defeat the vile demon. Standing opposite each other, we made the seals of confrontation. Let's begin. We immediately jumped up and rushed at each other. She started with a kick to my body. I quickly dodged to the side and, grabbing her leg, tried to throw her out of the circle. However, she did not lose her head and tried to punch me in the head. To avoid the blow, I had to let her go and, bending down, I made a sweep, which she flew over, using the inertia from my throw. Quickly turning around, she struck a blow to the left side, but ran into a hard block and a counterattack to the stomach. Our fight in Tai continued for several minutes, until both of us got tired of it. After another exchange of blows, we found ourselves at some distance from each other. Looking at each other, we simultaneously began to fold the seals, and under Irika's shout, we both said Katan, fireball. Futon, great gust. A strong gust of wind met the fireball, strengthening it, and passing it, flew into Satsuki, who did not expect such a turn of events, and threw her outside the circle. At this time, I was able to dodge the enlarged ball, only slightly scorching my clothes. Winner Namikaze Naruto. Make the seal of reconciliation. Irika exclaimed. I approached the fallen Satsuki and extended my hand in a gesture of reconciliation. Although she looked upset by the defeat, she still responded, and before we could unclasp our hands, Sensei pounced on us. Why did you use techniques? I forbade the use of everything except taijutsu. You did not forbid the use of techniques, Irika-sensei, Satsuki said calmly. What? You said that it was forbidden to use bladed weapons, but you did not mention techniques, so we simply took advantage of the inaccuracy of your wording. So we did not break any rules. I added Uchiha in an equally calm tone. And yes, please, call me Uzumaki Naruto. Iruka stood there with his mouth open, shocked that two 7-year-olds could outsmart him. We just stepped aside. Satsuki spoke first. I didn't think anyone could beat me. Thank you for the fight. Thank you too, the fight was really good. She was about to say something else, but then Kiyomi ran up to us. And I-san, that was awesome. Congratulations on your victory. Will you teach me this technique? She said enthusiastically. I smiled warmly at this. Of course I will teach you. Thank you? She hung on my neck. But then she came to her senses, pulled away and began to introduce herself to the Uchiha. Hi, I'm Kiyomi. You're also very strong. Do you want to train with us sometime? Why not? If Naruto could beat me, then I think it won't be useless. She answered after a short thought. Hooray! Let's do it next week then, because my mom has me learning Fuin, so I won't be able to for the foreseeable future. By the way, Kiyomi, I met Kakashi-san in Ichiraku today. He agreed to teach us lightning. She stared at me in disbelief. But after a few seconds, she simply lit up with happiness. Really? Me too? Of course, I couldn't forget about you. We even forgot about Satsuki for a while, until she reminded us of herself with an awkward question. Wait, how do you know the copy ninja, and how could you meet him if you were at the academy all day? I mentally hit myself on the forehead. I'm an idiot. How could I have gotten caught like that? The fox laughed in his subconscious. You finally admitted that you're an idiot. I've been waiting for this for a long time. Quiet, I answered him mentally and closed the communication channel so as not to hear his indignation. Satsuki looked at me attentively, waiting for an answer. And I was wondering whether I should say that I appeared at the academy for the first time in a month, and the rest of the time my clones were here. I know Kakashi-san because he is a student of the Hokage, and also my brother's mentor. And as for how I met him, it's simple, I was not here, I said. After all, in my world we were friends, and here she seems normal. So I will try to establish friendship. My clone was here. Like the whole last month. I grinned. Just don't tell anyone, or they will make me come here. She was clearly surprised by the answer. Do you own clones? But people touched you, and if it is a clone, it should be intangible. It was not an illusory clone, but a shadow one. It is tangible, and even more, after disappearing it transmits to me part of the received information. That's how I found out that there are sparrings today. Wow! How do you know her? It's a secret, I answered, making my grin even wider. Surprisingly, she accepted this and did not become indignant. She only chuckled and, having said goodbye, walked away. The rest of the fights were boring. Kiyomi got Ino, and she easily defeated her, for which I congratulated her. After sparring, I returned to the training ground, and my sister went home to her mother. Once again, having completely spent my chakra on training the impulse, I began to train a new style of taijutsu, spied on by Madara. Although I do not have a Sharingan, after removing the mental bookmarks, my analytical abilities and memory have significantly improved, so I was able to remember how the god of shinobi fought. As much of an asshole as he was, I can't deny that he was my strongest opponent. And in Kurama's cloak mode, my reaction speed rises to the level of Mangekyo, so there won't be any problems with the fact that the style is designed for the owner of the Sharingan. After spending the rest of the day at the training ground, I trudged home as the evening approached. There I met Seiji, who tried to say something to me, but was successfully ignored. After a quick snack and a shower, I fell onto the bed and, with a grin imagining my brother's face when I come to them for training, instantly fell asleep.